Right, everybody. Hope everybody's doing well out there. So another Esoterica live stream, kind of Q&A. Going to do a little show and tell at some point. But yeah, just really glad to see everybody on the stream, and really good to see everybody just hanging out. And I know we're a little early. Typically, we do these on Fridays, and typically we do these a little later in the day, but that's not going to quite work out this week for lots of other reasons. Hey, Andrew, Jenny. But yeah, I thought I'd at least jump on for an hour or so and talk about things going on with the channel and maybe some cool books that I have that I'm going to be actually putting up for sale pretty soon on Ex Libris, so that folks can get access to those if they'd like. But it's been a pretty fun couple of weeks, 3 or 4 weeks here, and excuse me, in on the channel. We've had just a ton of really great stuff going on. A lot of fun topics recently. We've had the one on Canaanite magic, which was a ton of fun. I really love doing ancient Near East stuff. It's not exactly my realm of specialty, um, but it is a ton of fun to work on. I have an enduring interest in that whole region, and I can read a little Ugaritic and Akkadian and stuff, so it's really fun to be able to work out those muscles, I suppose. And then we switched over to the Testament of Solomon, and this is one of these texts that has had a huge impact on the history of magic, the history of demonology, the mythology, even the mythology around that's found in the Quran about Solomon. And it's just this hugely important text that I think for whatever reason doesn't get read too much. And it was also really great to do some work with the Johnson translation of Recension C, which I hope some folks have gotten the chance to look at, because that's a really fun recension to look at. It's kind of a pre-Goetic kind of magical manual that really puts the Testament of Solomon much more in the practical side of magic, I suppose. So that's a really great recension to take a look at. And then on top of that, it's just really fun. I think people have this enduring interest in Solomonic magic for lots of reasons. And I think that the Testament of Solomon doesn't get the attention it often deserves, because the Goetia and other texts really get all of the credit because of Crowley and all of those guys. But the Testament of Solomon really is a ground floor for a bunch of that stuff in many ways. And so was really a lot of fun to work on that episode. And I think it was received pretty well. Also, it was really cool to see what is probably one of the earliest examples of the Seal of Solomon. We have so many different seals of Solomon that float around in the literature. And so it's really interesting to see a really early example of one, in that 15th century manuscript. That's really worth seeing. So thank you, M1M0, for the super sticker. Appreciate your support of the channel. Yeah, as folks I'm sure know, this channel is completely supported by Patreon. It's supported by folks here on YouTube. It's really, every little bit of support goes a long way into making this channel possible, and for me to fight off the demons that are Brill books. Although I don't buy a lot of those, honestly, I end up ILLing them, but it is a bunch of other books that I do end up buying that do cost a good bit of money. And so it's really I'm really thankful and grateful for the support I get via my patrons, many of which are here. Just saw some new patrons come in as well, so I really appreciate all of you guys. Yeah, some folks joined, I think, just to get access to some of the recent videos. I think Ashley O'Hara, I think you did, and again, Andrew, other folks who not only support my work but support the fabulous work of Dr. Angela Puka. Really appreciate all of you. And again, you can support the channel by doing lots of other things than throwing money at me. Not that I'm going to say no to that. But again, just by tweeting out episodes, by sharing Facebook, liking, commenting, putting the bell on, smashing buttons apparently is the thing I'm supposed to tell you to do. You shouldn't smash things. I feel like that would be bad. It can hurt your computer, so don't do that. But yeah, it's that support all really makes this channel possible. And again, I'm really grateful and thankful for that support. BG Chadwick, thank you so much for the super sticker. Oh yeah, let's talk about some Enoch stuff as well. We got some we got a really fun episode with the Enoch material. I have to say that episode was really fun to make. Third Enoch is like, it's just like my jam of crazy stuff. I just love, like, if you're gonna be kind of a weirdo text, just turn it all the way up, man. Just go full Enoch on it. Go full Metatron. I know they tell you to never go full Metatron, but I'm saying always go full Metatron. And and that episode was a ton of fun to make, and it's been received really well. It's gotten really a lot of traction. But Enoch 3 is just a barrel of monkeys, barrel of archangels. So good. And it's also fun trying to read this stuff in Hebrew, which is like, it makes it even more of a challenge because it's so weird. Um, but yeah, thank you guys again. Yes, thank you guys again for supporting the channel in terms of taking a look at these crazy videos I make. And the Enoch one, I have to say, was just a ton of fun to make. I hope you guys know how much, like, I take this stuff really seriously academically, right? But I also just love this stuff. You know, I don't have to believe that Enoch really existed, or that he became Metatron, or that Metatron's really up there getting like BDSM'd by the Archangel Gabriel, which I'm down with that. I'm open to that. That's okay by me. Like, whatever your kink is, right? Angels up there beating each other with fiery lashes, pulse denura. If you want to go full heavenly BDSM, that's great. And so I'm all about these texts. I just love this stuff. I absolutely love reading all this stuff. And yeah, especially the kinkier stuff with the angels beating each other with. It's like really wonderfully metatronic, homoerotic stuff up there in heaven, with them smacking each other with the pulse denura, the fiery lashes. So I love that stuff. Yeah, you're never gonna turn me off to that. And looking forward to more Enoch Metatron stuff as well. So don't think that I'm going to touch it once and pass on it. You best believe there's a lot more Metatron in the future here in the channel. A lot more Enoch too. If you're wondering why I haven't covered book Enoch 1 and Enoch 2, the reason for that's really simple. Enoch 1 has there's already really good, lots of good channels have done stuff on Enoch 1. And Enoch 2 has also been covered by Religion for Breakfast. And it's just a really great episode. So I'm not going to try to reinvent the wheel. If one of those guys out there, like Andrew, has done a really great video on it, I'm not going to reinvent the wheel to do another one. I point you to Andrew's channel. Obviously, anyone who knows about my stuff knows about Religion for Breakfast. But no one had touched Enoch 3 yet. So I was like, well, time to roll up my sleeves and get on it. With the Metatron stuff, although I will say, like I said in the comment, that it was a real mistake not making any Transformers jokes. I don't know how I managed to fail you guys in that regard, but please forgive me. All right. Yeah, thank you. Piqued my interest in studying Solomonic and Eviction Magic. Many thanks, Leverage. Thank you for the super chat. Yeah, the Solomonic magic stuff's fascinating. I'm going to be doing deeper dives into some of the episodes about Solomon, and so look forward to more Solomonic material in the future, including the Hygromantia, which is sort of the big leap, big leap forward in terms of the Great Leap Forward. Is that the Maoist Solomon? The Great Leap Forward into Solomonic magic is this Greek text. I'll be covering it at some point soon as well, because in many ways it's also really going to set the stage for European magic as it gets practiced. So look for that episode at some point in the future. I'll talk about a few other things I'm working on here in just a little bit. All right. So thank you so much for the super chat. Let me see. There's a couple more that come in. And do I know any good sources about ornithomancy? This is divination by birds. Is it divination by birds, like by checking their entrails, or by the patterns of birds as they fly through the sky? Um, I have a couple of books on Greek and Roman magic, and I think that I believe that the Greeks and the Romans were much more into that form of divination, I think, than other folks were. But I don't know of any good sources. Aside from these books I have on Greek and Roman magic, I would have to look up and see what they say. But I wonder to what degree has any of that stuff been preserved? It looks like a lot of Roman religion was very oral. A lot of Roman religious rites were very oral, and they didn't get written down, unlike Babylonian or Jewish rites from the same time. So I have to say I don't know of any. But Lindsay, let me do some digging, and if you'll shoot me an email over at my over on my website, I'll try to give you some resources um, for there. Although again, I would always encourage people never to hurt animals in the interest of trying to figure out the future. That would be not a thing I would encourage by in the least. So, but if you just want to do some bird watching and try to figure out what the future is, and by all means. But yeah, I don't know anything off the top of my head. All of the Mancy's, there's so many of the Mancy's that really trying to get all the Mancy's figured out is the thing that I don't have all figured out. But let me see. Yeah, I bet a bunch of people did. I mean, it's interesting because in the Hebrew Bible, there's a form of divination that gets condemned called Ma'onin, is what it's called. And the Ma'onin comes from Anan, which means clouds, and it was some kind of divination by clouds, probably, maybe by birds too. And so we do get something like cloud divination or something like that. But yeah, I think most ancient peoples had a wide range of mantic arts, and doing it by birds is a pretty good one. Um, Not only that, I think that I think there's even some evidence of flight changes in birds near earthquakes and stuff like that. I think I read that somewhere, and I could be totally making that up or wrong. But I don't know. Also, there's a whole idea in a lot of magical traditions of what is at least called in Yiddish Vogelspracht. Vogelspracht is the ability to talk the language of the birds, and the birds often have all kinds of secrets that they know. And if you learn to talk Vogelspracht, then and there are famous rabbis that could talk the Vogelspracht. Maybe the best could speak the Vogelspracht, but there's lots of things about how the birds know the future and stuff like that, and can communicate it via talking to them. I can't talk to birds, but the Vogelspracht is a cool idea that I should look up. I think that would be neat, a neat topic for a neat topic for a future episode. All right, let me grab some other super chats. Again, always sorry if I don't have a super great answer for you. I don't know everything. But when you don't know something, it's just best to say you don't know. Thank you, Southern Sass. Are you a Southerner, Southern Sass, also from the American South? Do appreciate your super sticker. Southerners, got to stick together and represent the South positively. There's so many negative representations of the South that I try to be a positive one. Do I think that Judaism can be seen as a sort of magic? Interesting. I don't think all of it, not all of it. A lot of it's just kind of plain Jane old, ritual trying to get God to do stuff for you, or at least not let other people kill you. It's a long history in Judaism, God using other nations to kill people. So maybe that's a kind of magic. I think working directly with God would be much more close to classical idea of do ut des, right? I give, so you give, like we make a deal. So that covenantal theology is much more classically a sort of do ut des, which I don't think would be considered magic. I think that would be sort of normie religion. But there's certainly things in Judaism that are absolutely magic, even in the Hebrew Bible. The example that jumps to mind to me most clearly is the Sotah ritual. Folks may know the Sotah ritual, right? This is where if a man is convinced that his wife has committed adultery, and he's crazy with jealousy. Of course, it only works for the man. The woman can't do this because of misogyny. But he can basically bring her to the temple or the Mishkan, and she can be made to eat this concoction of water and ashes from the floor and all kinds of stuff. And something happens to her stomach. It's not clear what happens to her stomach or body. And if this happens, then she is found to be guilty of adultery. It's sort of a magical way of sorting out whether a woman's committed adultery. There's no analogous right to men, obviously, as I mentioned. But that just looks a bunch like magic to me. I don't know. When I look at that looks like that looks a lot like magic. And the Rambam even thinks it looks a lot like magic. I think even he says in one of his commentaries that This never resulted in a woman being convicted on adultery charges, the punishment of which would be stoning. But there's never was a woman convicted this way. And also that it was actually introduced as a kind of way of weaning the Israelites off of paganism, where they had become used to paganism, but God did not want them to be do paganism anymore. Not that there's anything wrong with paganism for all my wonderful pagans out there, but at least the Israelite God did not want them doing that, and He couldn't break them of their pagan ways, and so He inserts a lot of this paganism, including the animal sacrifices and all of it, as an idea that that's weaning the Israelites off of paganism. I don't know, but even to the Rambam, the Sotah ritual smacked of magic. And every time I read about it, it looks a lot like a magical ritual. It's like a magical ordeal, which were very common in many pre-modern societies. Swimming the witch, of course, is the most famous of these hideous ordeals. But yeah, I think that there's certainly magical elements in Judaism. I will say that I'm very happy the Sotah ritual is not practiced anymore. I hope it never will be practiced. I hope it never was practiced. Um, but um, but maybe Maimonides was right when he sort of argued that it never worked, and therefore it was always a way for men to work out their jealousy issues. Of course, working them out on the bodies of unfortunate women, their wives. Um, but it also never worked, and therefore it it never meant that a woman had to be murdered because of having committed adultery, and then this adultery being proved with this weird ritual. So, all right, thank you guys. Get some more of these. Um, I know. Recommendations for books on Bronze Age myth, religion, and magic that mix both written sources and archaeology. It's a great question. Um, I guess where in the Bronze Age? Where in the world in the Bronze Age would you want to be focused at? There's a lot of stuff on Mesopotamian magic, a ton. Abush is going to be your guy, Abusch. He's going to be the guy for that material. So he's going to cover things like the Maklu ritual, and that's going to be sort of the anti-witchcraft, anti-Apishtu magic that's going to exist in ancient Mesopotamia, which is really fascinating. I've done an episode on that, on the Maklu ritual, so you can find some resources to Abush's work. There is a great collection of magical stuff from Ugaritic that I covered recently, right? So I had some recommendations in my episode on Ugaritic magic for Bronze Age Canaanite magic. So those are good resources, although not a lot survives, to be frank. I don't know what the Aegean situation looks like, what the Bronze Age Aegean situation. That's all going to be written in like linear A and linear B anyway, I think. And so I don't even know what survives there. I don't know that much literary stuff even survives in linear A and B, and of course we can't even read one of them. So so I don't know about the Aegean situation. Of course, also in Egypt, there's tons and tons and tons. If you look through stuff on Egyptian magic, you have the Book of Coming Forth by Day. You have a ton of other stuff, and I have a couple books here on Egyptian magic, Heka, um, um, over there as well, but I have to look them up. So for the Levant, I think that the text on my Ugaritic magic episode are going to be the best. For Mesopotamia, you're going to want to go to Svi Abush. He's going to be your guy there. Finkel's also going to have a little bit of stuff. Irving Finkel's going to have some stuff that's going to be really, really good. You can find some of those links in my episode on the Mockley ritual. And Egyptian stuff. Also, I have to look up something specific, but there's a ton out there on Egyptian Heka stuff. But on the Aegean is my weak spot. And then, of course, you have Bronze Age Europe. And I have to say also there, because not much is getting written down, there's not much in the way of text, that's for sure. And of course, there are there's some stuff there, but I'm also even not that clear on Indo-European stuff. Also, I guess another resource that would be worth looking at is there's a great book called Indo-European Myth and Religion, I think, or Myth and Ritual by crap, what's his name? I have it somewhere. I can't remember where I have it now. I don't see it. But it's the best analysis of what the Indo-Europeans believed, including what we have access to in terms of their ritual texts. What's the name of that book? Hold on, let me look it up real fast. I hate when I don't have like my entire memory memorized or my entire library memorized. 1 second. Sorry. Indo-European ritual and myth. Yeah, Indo-European myth and poetry. Emma West, of course, Emma West. This is without a doubt the best introduction to, and I'll throw the ISBN down in the chat so you can take a look at it. But that's going to be your best glimpse into the Indo-European situation, um, and that's going to obviously be Bronze Age and prior, Copper Age. So that'd be my recommendations on that. In terms of Bronze Age myth, a really great, at least one about Canaanite stuff, is Tales Stories from Ancient Canaan by Mark Smith and Cooper, I think is his name. That's going to be your best resource for at least Bronze Age stuff in the Levant, and then there's tons of stuff for Bronze Age stuff in Mesopotamia and Egypt. All right, thank you, Nell. Oh, Joe Jones, always love seeing your chats, man. What am I reading by Crowley lately? I'm reading the Holy Books. Do I have them nearby? Let me see if I do. They're not accessible easily. I got there's a great collection of Thelemic Holy Books that I got. Um, that contains all the major Class A books. I think I don't have Marco de Visconti here to help me. I think it's all the Class A books, and those are all the sacred text of Thelema. So I've been reading those. Um, yeah, I've just been in this. I don't know this sort of this Crowley kick recently, reading a lot of the holy texts. I have to say they're really bewildering, which I think is probably half on purpose, and also just what happens when you channel stuff. But they're super interesting. I'm going to get around to do some Crowley material eventually. I'm fairly confident I'm going to do an episode on the Book of the Law next year for the period of time where it was revealed to Crowley via his wife and I guess Awas. So I want to do at least an episode or two on Crowley and the Book of the Law. Although I'm looking for this book called The Laws for All, which is one of the authoritative commentaries on Crowley, and you can't find it in print anywhere because of the balagan that is OTO printing stuff in this country. But if anyone has a PDF of it, I would love to get a copy of The Laws for All. If anyone has a PDF of it, let me know. When you let stuff go out of print and it becomes crazy expensive, sorry, not sorry if I go looking for a PDF. Jason Sobek, why is we're gonna get some Joy Division question here. Why is Joy Division close to the most Gnostic album of all time? Also, are you a fan of the Schwepp broadcast? Yeah, I am absolutely a fan of Schwepp. In fact, when I was thinking to do Esoterica, there was a real question about how I wanted to approach the material. And one of the models that really made a lot of sense to me was the Schwepp model. But then I was like, I don't really want to be pinned down by having to do things in chronological order. So I'd rather do a different kind of historiography that isn't sort of linear like that. So I think where it's interesting because we approach the topics in quite different ways. And Earl Fontenelle is just a super great, super smart person. I really appreciate his work. So absolutely. And why is Joy Division's close to the most Gnostic album of all time? Um, I don't know. Uh, but I would agree with you. There's something, yeah, there's a kind of, I think I've made this joke before, that's kind of a Gnostic-y album. There's something about the dread of this world and also the excitement for another world. I don't know, that seems to strike me as somewhat interestingly Gnostic-y. I don't know. But me, I'm just totally projecting because I like the album anyway and I want it to kind of be more magical than it is. But thank you, Jason, for all the super chats and the super stickers that you do to support the channel and other channels like this. So I really do appreciate this. All right, let me grab some other, make sure there's no other super chats that I've missed. Oh wow, a lot of chats. Let's see here. Solomonic Maoism. Yeah, that's the kind of crazy stuff you can get over here. Um, let's see. Um, all right, good. So I have that link in there, which is good. Yeah, I think I would also say that, obviously you know, uh, Tool makes a lot of really gnostic albums. So that certainly strikes me as another avenue of Gnostic kind of insights into music. But yeah, it seems like someone could easily make a whole Gnostic album. Why in the world there's not like an entire album of the Apocryphon of John or Thunder Perfect Mind? Blows my mind. It blows my mind. You would think there would be a whole album of someone just basically like putting Thunder Perfect Mind to music. I think that would be really cool. John Zorn or something. All right. All right, folks. Well, thank you so much for the super chat so far. I really appreciate that. Of course, I also want to get some of the non super chat questions because I don't want it to be that just um, only the folks who do the donations um, get the get the questions in. I want to make sure I get other people as well. Um, yeah, you mentioned the Fagelsprach earlier. Is there a lot of Yiddish writing on magic in Yiddish? There must be. I don't read Yiddish, or I read Yiddish through a German lens darkly. Basically, I read Hebrew letters, because I can read Hebrew, and then I kind of know German, and then if I squint and look funny at it, I can kind of tease out what's going on. There must be a ton of literature. In fact, I just saw a scholar, I think in Tel Aviv or Haifa, somewhere is doing work on the intersection of Yiddish and magic stuff. So I'm sure that there must be a ton, both in the Hasidic world, but also in the sort of para Jewish world as well in Yiddish. But but I don't know. I'm not a Yiddishist. I don't know much Yiddish, so I cannot speak to that with any authority. Let me jump up. I think I saw another. Johnny Spinoza. Are you familiar with David Langston's six-volume Ordo Abkal? Um, no, I'm not. I've never heard of this before. Um, no, I've never heard of this before. What is it? Um, yeah, I have no idea what it is. I'm sorry, but it sounds neat. Let me know more about what it is. Sorry, I've not read it. Right, J.P. Harry. When it comes to Metatron, is there a similarity to Elijah the prophet? Yeah, there is, and there's actually some. I think there's some Kabbalistic literature in which. So there's another weird angel. It's a bunch of weird angels. There's another weird angel called Sandalphon, who, as you can hear, Sandalphon has a non-Hebrew sounding name. Right, he's one of these Metatron-like beings that doesn't have a Hebrew sounding name. And Sandalphon, I think there is literature in which Sandalphon is translated Elijah. That Elijah but it was translated into an angel. And so I think that that literature, and I can't remember what text that happens in, or if it's in one of these later Merkava texts. 'Cause I don't think it's in Hechelot Zutarti or Rabati or those. I don't think it's in any of those. But I think that there's legends of him of Sandalphon being translated Elijah. So and that would be the two people, right, in the Hebrew Bible that never die, Enoch and Elijah. They both become angels in this mythology. Also, by the way, there are stories, and Zevi over at Seekers of Unity informed me of this, and I didn't know this at all, but apparently in the Hasidic world, there are lots of tales of Rebbe's being translated into Metatron, that they get turned into Metatron as well. So it seems like one may be able to be translated into Metatron over and against its being Enoch. Several people might be able to be translated into Enoch or to Metatron. So apparently there's a tradition of that in the Hasidic world that I didn't know anything about. So you learn new stuff every day. That is the great thing about all of this, is that you absolutely never exhaust all the things that you end up doing. Any thoughts on Nietzsche, particularly life affirming and life denying forces in Deleuze's interpretation? I've never read Deleuze's Nietzsche book. It's my understanding that it's badly translated, actually. That it's of all the books that Deleuze has been translated, the Nietzsche book and the Leibniz book I've heard are badly translated. I've never tried to read either of them in French, and I don't think I even have them in French. Um, um, Although I love his work on Spinoza, so I don't have any particular things on that thoughts on Deleuze and Nietzsche. I just haven't read that book because I've heard it's badly translated and I didn't want to waste the time. Um, but thoughts on Nietzsche in general, I like teaching Nietzsche. I think Nietzsche is one of my favorite to teach. I think he's one of these philosophers that just gets systematically abused by everybody because I think it's mostly a lot of the times people reading Deleuze are like these there are these would-be Ubermenschen, right? There are these young guys who and they're always guys, these young guys who just like feel trod upon by the world and they turn to Nietzsche as a way of feeling like they're the Ubermensch, the blonde beast. And they're definitely never the blonde beast, because if you're self-consciously trying to be an Ubermensch, I can guarantee you that you will never be an Ubermensch. Of all the things that I know about the Ubermensch, I can tell you that if you try to be one, you will never become one. And you certainly will never become one by reading books. Period. That is not how the Ubermensch becomes the Ubermensch. That's not how the Ubermenschen don't operate, by reading books and becoming stuff. Not at all. So the thing about Nietzsche, I guess, is that I have a lot of distrust of a certain kind of group of people that read Nietzsche. Um, and I love teaching him, even though I deeply disagree with him. I don't like Nietzsche's method at all. It smacks to me of what will eventually become postmodernism. Frankly, his genealogical method, I think, is just crazily bad. It's like, let's just make up history and know that it's not really history. So let's call it genealogy somehow, and that makes it okay. Um, I'm like, no, I'm a pretty hardcore positivist when it comes to historiography. But I do like teaching him, and the reason and the place that I teach him actually is I teach him in my ethics classes. When I teach ethics, he's always the last guy I teach. And the reason why I teach him last is because in many ways he forces us to reconsider everything we've learned in ethics. And I think that that's a very powerful learning tool to think, oh yeah, we've learned all these systems of virtue ethics and Aristotelian ethics and Kant and deontology and utilitarianism and natural law. And Nietzsche kind of like just comes in the room and just like flips the table over, um, with his mustache power. And that table flipping moment, I think, in the last few weeks of an ethics class, I think is a powerful learning tool. And also, I think I teach Nietzsche for another reason, and that's this: one can be critical of Judaism, right? And Nietzsche was very critical of Judaism, like very critical of Judaism, and not become an anti-Semite. And I think that's hard to do. I think it's very difficult to do. I think that most of the time when I hear people say, "Oh, I'm not really I'm not an anti-Semite. I'm just anti-Judaism." I've rarely ever met a person who says that, and I really end up, after I dig a little closer, I really believe them. I believe Nietzsche, and I believe him because he did the right thing. There were anti-Semites around him, and he broke with them. And he says, "Look, I criticize Judaism. Judaism has a crappy, life-denying, slave morality ethics, and they've gone on to in Christianity as well. And also, he was like, anti-Semitism is horrible and wrong." So I really appreciate Nietzsche in that regard, and I don't mind teaching him as an anti-Jewish, anti-Judaism philosopher. And I appreciate teaching him as an anti-Judaism philosopher because it also challenges me to think about my own commitment to Judaism, because he makes good points. And when Judaism is life-denying or when it is servile, that is something that is worth questioning. That is, to me, worth questioning. Um, right. I think I saw another. Um, but yeah, I really appreciate Nietzsche a lot. Facial hair aside, I really appreciate his commitment to his mustache. No, his commitment to telling hard truths, and telling them in ways that are beautiful and poetic, um, and pretentious in a certain kind of way, and not giving a damn about it. I don't know. I appreciate it. I appreciate Nietzsche, even if I deeply disagree with him. And I think he's important to teach. Very important to teach, especially in ethics. So much of ethics is just logic crunching. It's just so bad. It doesn't actually get people to think hard about decisions, moral decisions. And absolutely Nietzsche does. And I really appreciate that about him. What are my opinions of summoning rituals? Have you ever attempted one for research or fun? That sounds real scary. Which would you consider intriguing or possible? So, my opinion of summoning rituals is they're all very interesting. Obviously, I wouldn't be running a channel like this if I didn't think that they were super interesting. I've never attempted one, neither for research or fun. Um, I mean, there's a lot of reasons why I wouldn't do it, religious reasons, but I think I wouldn't also do it for either research or fun. Is because if let's say these beings exist, angels and demons and spirits and all the stuff that exist, and let's say they are powerful, because I imagine they'd probably be more powerful than us, because we're like crap. I mean, we're kind of crappy at everything. I mean, we're just like we evolved to become humans because we were bad at being apes. We're not good at anything really, making tools and hurting each other. So we're not that powerful, all things told. At least not without all of our fancy prosthetics in the forms of tools and things. If they do exist, they're probably more powerful than us. And the idea that I would summon some being into a triangle or whatever, and they show up and say, "All right, now what? What do you want?" And I'm like, I was just fooling around." I would not want to do that. That seems rude to me, frankly. It just seems rude. It's like calling someone on purpose, like crank calling them almost. I don't know. I wouldn't want to crank call someone, and I certainly wouldn't want to crank call, I don't know, a demon. That sounds like a terrible idea. Also, I think they'd be super disinterested in being summoned for academic research. They're like, "What? Trying to publish a paper about me?" I don't know. I think they would find that not a thing. Um, which do I consider intriguing or possible? Um, I think the one I would consider intriguing or possible, and I don't know, possible, but intriguing at least, is I don't know. Enochian magic has always struck me as super interesting. Um, it's very intriguing. I don't know that it really works or anything like that or whatever it would mean for it to work. But I think I find Enochian to be the most interesting. It's probably because it's the most nerdy. It's like you get a bunch of weird languages and cool symbols and a lot of math in there for some reason. It's just like the most nerdy. I find it to be the most interesting in that regard. But no, I would not try to summon. It's the equivalent of crank calling a demon. That sounds like a terrible idea. So I wouldn't do that. I don't encourage you to do it either. Don't crank call people. And don't crank call demons. Um, all right. All right. Let me see some other super chat or any other questions also. Um, yeah, I did read out an enchantment or incantation, an experimenta in Latin, but it seems like if you're just doing it in Latin, I don't know. Would it really work if you? I don't know. I don't know. Yeah, I read these things out loud sometimes to myself and think to myself, it just doesn't sound like a great idea. Um, but maybe it doesn't matter. All right, let's see here. Let me check out some other questions that are in the chat. All right, John. Hey, John. John, I've sent you an email about that book. So I hope you got it. Oh, thanks. Hey, Zev. Zevy's in the chat, everybody. Seekers of Unity, guys. If you're not subscribed to Seekers of Unity, which is Zevy's channel, you guys really got to check his channel out, folks. If you're interested in mysticism, I don't know of a person that I've ever met who I respect more in terms of Zevy's commitment to being both deeply sympathetic to mysticism, deeply open to the power of mysticism as a transformative thing for human beings, and also really committed to the scholarly work of being rigorous about studying it. I don't think I've ever met a person more on the hits on all three of those than Zevi over at Seekers of Unity. So if you guys are interested in mysticism, you got to check his channel out. The dude's Zevi's just a minchy dude who just manages to hit all three of those things just like a machine. And I appreciate you, Zevi. It was great hanging out with you the other day talking about perennialism. And it's also just awesome that he and I don't see eye to eye about things like mysticism and stuff. And it's just really great to actually just be committed to deepening an intellectual relationship, but also just a friendship where there's real difference. That's just, man, there's no blessing bigger than that. So thank you, Zevi. You guys got to go check his stuff out. It's just amazing stuff. All right. Let's see here. Another one. Any connection between naming God Yahweh in the Yazidism name God? Yeah, I'm not sure how you even pronounce that. In the ancient Egyptian Ra and Hey, they sound similar and all with sun ties. I don't think with well, Yahweh's not much connected to the sun. Sometimes there's kind of a shamash connection, but not really. But Yahweh, I think, actually doesn't begin as a sun god. I'm sure that Yahweh probably begins as a warrior god, actually. So I'm much more convinced of his origins as kind of a Midianite warrior god. I don't know about the Yazidism question. That would be someone who would want to be more connected to Yazidism, and I'm not sure about that. But I'm fairly confident that Yahweh's name just comes from the Hebrew word for to be, and it's sort of a general shoresh from like Yahaya, which the one that is, but also I think it would connote the one that causes to be, i.e., the creator. So really pretty, I'm pretty confident that that's where Yahweh is coming from. And I'm going to make a video about this at some point. I know I keep saying I'm going to do it, and I'm going to do it eventually. But I'm fairly confident this God's coming down from the south, Midian, the Sinai, probably a warrior god, and it eventually gets assimilated into the Canaanite pantheon, but late. I mean, I think it's probably not until the 6th, 7th century BCE that Yahweh is really combined with El, and then also harmonized with Baal. Um, in fact, yeah, that's the big thing that happens, right? Is that Yahweh is imported, and then El and Baal are kind of assimilated to Yahweh, and then Yahweh really gets really attached to the Israelite court, and becomes the standard, one of the standard gods there, the kind of composite god, maybe around the Amrides or something like that. But that's kind of what I think happens. But I don't think there's so much of a connection between them. And then, of course, you got this weird Yahoo of the what are the Shasu people, but such a tenuous connection. To be such an important god, we know so little about this being. Always there's so little evidence about the origins of this being, which is good because that's job security. It means you can constantly speculate about it. Jay Perry, thank you. What are your thoughts on psychedelics? Do you find the experiences similar to claims of religious experiences? Have you ever tried any or have any psychedelic experiences? Yeah, I've tried a range of psychedelic drugs, experimented with them. I think they're very important. I think folks will know this if you've been around around this channel for a while, that I'm very pro responsible use of psychedelic drugs. I'm also very pro of them being more fully inculcated into psychiatric therapy and addiction therapy and other forms of therapy, including facilitated spiritual experiences. Um, so I'm very pro that. So yes, I have tried a range of psychedelic drugs, and and I think that in a responsible setting, they can be a very, very powerful tool for transformation, growth, creativity, healing, I think, too. So I think that in that way I'm very pro them. I think they're like tools like anything else. They can be abused and they can be mistreated and they can be used recreationally in bad ways. But that's true of any tool, right? A hammer in the wrong hands is a pretty scary thing. Do I find the experiences similar to the claims of religious experiences? Insofar as I've had religious experiences, I can't say that they're very similar. Um, Insofar even as I've read in many mystics, I don't see them as being terribly similar. Um, when I read a lot of mystics, and when I read mystical literature, it just doesn't strike me as terribly psychedelic. Some stuff seems pretty weird, but not weird in a psychedelic way. When I read Hildegard or I don't know, Julian Norwich or I don't know the Kabbalah, I just don't see so much psychedelia there. So I think that they're quite different, but that's just me. And again, I'm not a mystic, so it's not for me to say. All I can say is when I read the literature and compare it to my experiences having consumed psychedelic drugs, I don't see a lot of parallels. I don't see a lot of parallels. And also, I'll be the first to admit that I am absolutely in the minority in that regard. I'm absolutely in the minority in that regard. So you should trust that as far as you can throw it, I guess. But yeah, I don't know why. Um, I do know why, but it's unfortunate that psychedelics have been pushed to the sidelines, and it's good that places like Johns Hopkins are doing scientific experiments on the intersection of psychedelic drugs and spirituality. That research has been long in coming, and yeah, I think it's going to prove to be really beneficial to many, many, many people. So thank God that they're doing. Thank God they're doing that work. Is there a link between the Amidah and Merkava? That's an interesting question. Um, Kind of, actually, kind of. It has to do with the dating of some of the Merkava literature. So folks may know that the Amidah is a set of 18, really 19 benedictions that was um, some people in the chat always want to be bad. Don't be bad in the chat. Be nice. Um, so the Amidah is a standing prayer that is the standard. It's the centerpiece of Jewish prayer life. It's the benediction. You do it 3 times a day, and that's the main prayer. Um, One of those is the kedusha, right? The kedusha is one of the prayers in the Merkava literature, and so the kedusha is at the center point of the angels benedictions and like 30 Enoch, right? But it's also kind of near the center and kind of a central point in the Shemon Esrei in the Amidah, the standing prayer. And in fact, it's tradition to stand with your feet together because the angels are said to have only one leg. And to stand with your feet together and pray is to imitate the angels. And there's a moment in the prayer where you go up on your tippy toes, kadosh, 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 and you go up on your tippy toes 3 times in the emulation of angels. So, so one, there's that, right? You're kind of acting as if you are in the presence of the Merkava when you're saying this prayer. But I think a more interesting thing is the kedusha has got fuller over the centuries. There's been a lot sort of an accretion around the kedusha, and what's ended up happening is that some people date the Merkava literature to be very early, because when the kedusha is done performed by the angels in the Merkava literature, it's very spare. It's just kadosh, 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 Adonai Tzevaot, right? It's just the very bare bones kedusha, and many people think that because the kedusha in the Merkava literature does not have all the later rabbinical accretions, that the kedusha as it's represented in the Merkava literature is older than the rabbinic development of it in the period of the Tanaim. Um, okay, I don't know if that's true. That's an argument that people make. I think it's an interesting kind of argument. But sure, that's at least one theory as to how to date it. Um, because yeah, I think that that's a totally possible analysis of it. But yeah, there is a connection between the Amidah and the Merkava, and it's the Kedusha, and even the dating of the Kedusha. Um, that might be an element by which we date the Merkava literature. So I don't like dating things that way, uh, but that is a way that some people date that literature, which is interesting. Um, all right, let me jump up and grab some. Yes, Jason, are you saying that Hildegard wasn't on shrooms when she wrote the Ordo Vertorum? Yeah, I'm pretty sure she wasn't. I mean, it's weird, but it's not like shroomy weird. Um, and she like knew a bunch about herbs and stuff. I think she would. I think she'd have told us at some level, but I'm fairly confident that she wasn't. That she wasn't. All right. Yeah. People keep saying mean things and then they get blocked. All right. Let me jump up and see some um, other things on here as well. Ooh, there's some people talking about absinthe. All right. Jonathan D. Hill. Are there any tales of humans being so revered by demons that they ascended into the form of a demon as Enoch did with before becoming an angel? It's a good question. Are there any stories where people get turned into demons? I don't think so. And there's frankly not even that many stories of people being turned into angels. And the idea of people being turned into angels would have really been anathema to someone like Thomas Aquinas, who really, really did not think that that kind of transformation was even possible. Um, um, People get taken to hell by demons, but I don't know of any stories in which someone is transformed into one. Trying to think a little bit. I don't think so. I don't think so. I don't know of any stories where a human being is transformed into a demonic being. I know in Christian mythology, I know why that wouldn't work. It's just because the demons are fallen angels, um, and so it just doesn't. It wouldn't work that way. I mean, the closest thing I can think of is in the Enoch literature. The Nephilim can mate with humans, right? You can produce these giants, and there are some demons that are the spawn of humans and demons. So you can't get translated into one. It doesn't seem like, but you can mate with one and make like half demon, half human babies. For instance, I think Asmodeus in the Testament of Solomon is his genealogy is that he is half demon and half human. Um, so yeah, you can't exactly get transformed into one, but you can mate with one and make half demon, half human babies, I guess. I don't know. So yeah, I don't think you can. Excuse me. I don't think you can become one. I think that you can mate with them. I guess. I guess. All right. Let's see. There's some other questions. I'm going to stay on for probably about an hour and 15 minutes, just so folks will know how long I'll be on. Um, yeah, just so folks will know how long I'll be on. Of course, I'm glad to be helpful. But yeah, Ashmedai is a title, not a name. Yeah, sure. I mean, it means like wrath demon in Persian. But yeah, just in the same way that Satan isn't a name either. It's a title, Satan. It becomes a name in Christian mythology. So that is the way that worked itself out. Um, that is the way that it worked itself out. All right, let me see some other questions up here in the chat, so I can get a couple more before we sign off for the day. Thank you, Vasa. 330 folks watching. Thank you so much um, for tuning in and hanging out. Also, I'm going to be doing something on the Zohar, the origins of evil in the Zohar. Actually, when here in a few weeks as well. So, sort of the early origins of the Klipot and stuff. Ashley, do I teach classes? I do teach classes. I do teach classes. I teach just normie philosophy classes. In fact, I'm teaching a class this fall called Race, Sex, and Religion, which is like sort of like let's take everything controversial in the philosophy department and throw it into one class and give it to me. So yeah, I'm teaching this class on race, sex, and religion, which would be a lot of fun to teach. And I'm also teaching like intro political philosophy in another place. So yeah, I teach regular old normie classes, but I also teach on the YouTube and stuff. I'm thinking about putting together a online class on Merkava mysticism. I think people may be interested. I think people are pretty interested in Merkava mysticism as kind of a form of Jewish shamanism. And I'm really interested in going back into those texts in a pretty deep way and doing an entire online Esoterica class on on these topics, and I think they'll be interesting. So, yeah, I think that's maybe coming down the pike at some point. I just got the book, the major book that has all the major Merkava text translated. So, yeah, maybe look for that at some point in the future, maybe soon. I'd like to do that, just because it's super weird, and who doesn't like super weird stuff? Speaking of where I teach, Lawrence Tech is one of the places I teach. All right. Um, let's see. I saw some other questions down here. Have I ever read Fanged Newman about Ben by Nick Land? Yeah, I have. I have it. It's right there next to my copy of Thousand Plateaus in French. Have I read Fang Newman? Yeah, I have. Nick Land is one of these philosophers that I think is really interesting, and also just like most of people that read him are just awful. Fascist accelerationism is just so edge core. Like, I don't know. It's just like, hey man, sit down and like have a glass of wine, relax. Like, you seem really wound up. Like, you want to talk about your feelings? Um, I don't know. Yeah, it's interesting. I read all kinds of things. I think that not reading stuff because it's canceled or fascist or communist or liberal or whatever, not reading stuff, not studying things deeply because they're controversial, and not studying controversial texts because they're problematic. Like, I nothing worth reading isn't problematic. Like, period. Everything worth reading is problematic. Problematic is just what happens when we have a society and that society gets rocked, whether it's rocked in a positive way or a bad way or whatever. And I think even reading things that are that are very negative. Nick Land's philosophy is, I think, is it's a dumpster fire of half baked evil, and that's important because that's where things were in the '80s. That's kind of where things were. There was a real dark side to a lot of what was going on in philosophy and at the time. And I think that not addressing that stuff and not reading people like Nick Land, it just closes you off to reality. It closes you off to a dimension of thought that we all need to be challenged by. I don't like his philosophy. I find it to be reprehensible. I need to be challenged by his philosophy. And if he's wrong, I need to be willing to do the work of read him and then explain why I think that he's wrong. So yeah, I don't buy. Uh, don't read that. It's problematic. That if you want fascism to win, do that. That's the clear way to get fascism and all the repression you could ever imagine to win. Because the more you don't read stuff, the more ignorant you become, and the less you engage with problematic ideas. At the end of the day, they're going to win. They're going to win, and I don't want those people to win, frankly. And the way that you do that is by engaging with them intellectually and doing the hard work of figuring out if it's wrong, how is it wrong, working through that. So, yep, Nick Land, he's interesting. I think that it's bad, and I think that people should read him. I also think that a lot of people read Nick Land because they are edge core accelerationist and like trying to trigger people, and they have no idea what's going on in that book because they've never done the hard work of actually reading Deleuze and Guattari and all the other kinds of people that are actually undergirding a lot of his philosophy. So unless you've done the hard work of really getting at what's going on in the sort of nightmare that is pure difference, if you're not really doing that work, then you should not even touch Nick Land. There's no reason to, because he's having a conversation way up here, and you're not even done the work to climb the escalator yet. So many of the people who I see sort of fanboying or fangirling Nick Land, I'm like, have you done the work to actually understand what the hell he's talking about? Or are you just like using him to, trig the libs or be edgy? And that just is super unimpressive. But he's an important, impressive thinker, and needs to be addressed, whether you like him or not. And I certainly don't. Certainly I cancel him. It's so stupid. I don't get that at all. All right, let's see here. Get a couple more questions before jumping off. Um, ba, ba, ba. All right, scroll up. Yeah, this is interesting, Val. That yeah, this I get this term of Merkava as Jewish shamanism. I'm borrowing this from Jim Davila. I'm not super comfortable with using shamanism willy nilly to describe all kinds of things. I'm actually very much invoking Davila's theory that Merkava mysticism is a kind of Jewish shamanism. I think that holds. It'd be good to have a conversation with Dr. Angela Puka about that, because she's done some really great work on shamanism, and it would be interesting to see to what degree that holds up. So maybe a conversation for the future. But yep, it's something like certainly like a Jewish form of shamanism. Yes, I am familiar, Ethan, with the alphabet of Ben Sirach. Folks may know the most famous thing from the alphabet of Ben Sirach, and that is the story of Lilith. Lilith, of course, appears previous to the alphabet of Ben Sirach, but this is where we first get the story where Lilith refuses to be the on bottom during sex with Adam, and he expels her as his first wife. That's where that story comes from. It's from the alphabet of Ben Sirach. So when I get to doing an episode on Lilith, of course, that will feature prominently. That's a story everyone knows, but very few people, for whatever reason, actually quote the original version as it appears in the alphabet of Ben Sirach. So I will absolutely be covering that at some point. It's a great text anyway. It's all full of all kinds of fun stuff. Let's see here. There's a couple more things that I'm going to jump off and get ready to go get my kiddos. Have I ever looked into the Tao or the Monkey King? I don't know. I mean, I've read the Tao Te Ching, I guess, as much as I understand any of it. Anyone who quotes the Tao Te Ching at you as a proof text is sort of like a court jester. The Tao Te Ching is like literally contradicts itself all the time. So if you quote anything, then there's something in there that tells you that you're wrong. But no, I haven't read much about the Monkey King. I've been looking through this really cool Hackett book. There's a great Hackett book called Classical Chinese for Everybody. I really recommend this book, by the way. I recommend everything by Hackett, but there's a great book called Classical Chinese for Everyone, and it's this thin little volume that actually does the work of teaching you to read at a very introductory level classical Chinese, but you can actually use it and you will start reading like the Analects of Confucius. So I've really been enjoying this is like a thing I do when I get up before my kids wake up in the morning, is I do my chapter of classical Chinese for everyone. And it is something really cool about looking at Chinese, which is a language I don't know at all, and being like, oh, I can actually read an Analect now. Like I can read an Analect. I'm getting the tones all wrong, right? I'm not reading it correctly, but I'm looking at the actual Chinese characters and reading them. I'm understanding what they're talking about. So that's kind of neat. That makes me feel good. We should all try to feel good. I like that kind of stuff. All right. Can you say a little more about what you think about postmodernism? I can say a lot more about what I think about it. And most of it I think about it is that, one, people confuse postmodernism and poststructuralism. Those aren't the same thing. Postmodernism is mostly a literary movement with some philosophical adjunct. I don't like it. I'm not impressed by it. Poststructuralism, I think, is really important. Poststructuralism, I think, is intellectually profoundly important. Deeply changed my intellectual trajectory and career and thinking. It didn't make me not a structuralist, but it certainly showed that structuralism has real limits and real problems. So, but yeah, I'm not a fan of postmodernism. It just doesn't. It's clever. Like, I don't like clever stuff. When your philosophy is like playing on words, you can leave me behind. I'm gonna go do something. I'm gonna go like I play with Legos while you do that. Yeah. When it's just like, let me take apart words and put things in parentheses to make them two words at once. Like, I'm checking out, dude. I'll see you at the pub. I'm not doing this. This is not. This is like not in the least bit interesting to me. So, no, I'm not a big fan of that kind of philosophy. I think it's real clever. I think it's clever, and that's all. But I'm not interested in that. Whoops. Oh yeah, Goku. Can I elaborate on what I said regarding the Tao Te Ching? Again, I've only read it I've only read the Tao Te Ching a few times in a sort of world philosophy class. It just, I mean, it's a text that sort of revels in contradictions, and um, I've had people like quote it at me as if it's like scripture, like "Thus saith the Tao," and that just always struck me as like counter the whole purpose of the Tao Te Ching. Um, and so yeah, I've never found that to be, yeah. It's always white people too. It's never like Chinese people. I never had like a Chinese Taoist ever do that. So, but yeah. Anyway, yeah, that's what I mean. That it's a text that revels in contradiction, and so to use it as kind of like a scripture to bash people with has always struck me as like weird. Um, it's like, yeah, yeah. I'm like, how did you miss that? That's kind of the point of it. I don't know. Yeah, yeah. Whatever you can say about the Tao in the Tao, I'm like, I don't know what the hell it is, but you don't either. And you certainly can't like rib me with it. I don't know. I like how some people cease to be dogmatic Abrahamic people, like Christians and Jews, but still continue to be that in another religion. Like I just like meet like pagan fundamentalists or like whatever. Um, I like how basically they remain Christian or fundamentalist in spirit, but they now have some other religion. That has always struck me as hilarious and tragic, real tragic. Um, wow, there's like a bunch of people talking about Dragon Ball Z in the chat. It's wonderful. Um, my brother used to love Dragon Ball Z. I think he still likes Dragon Ball Z. I never, I never, I never got into it. Are the Klipot a modern concept of the tree of life or old? The Klipot are old. The concept is old. I mean, it goes back to the early Kabbalah, but it really gets developed primarily by Itzhak Luria and his followers. Some people talk about this thing of the tree of death. I've heard some people mention this. That's not a thing in Kabbalah. Like you have you do have a tree that mirrors the tree of life in certain circumstances, but it's always the lower seven sphirot, never the top three. It's always the lower seven, and those become klipot. Those are the sort of the inverted tree of life on the kind of as an extension coming off of Gevurah. And you can see that in some images of the Sphirot. Uh, but um, but the Klipot are an ancient idea, or at least a pretty early idea, at least early in Kabbalah, 16th century. But I also read all this not I was essentially garbage, all this weird made up stuff about the Klipot and modern occultism. I don't know where they get this stuff from. I think they just make it up. Um, the Klipot, I think, are one of the poorest understood aspects of Kabbalah, especially in sort of occulty Kabbalah. And I swear, I read this. I'm like, where are you getting this? It doesn't occur anywhere in any actual Jewish literature, and I think they're just making it up. I mean, not that making up stuff is bad, but it does confuse people when I'm like, yeah, that's not in the classical Kabbalah. Like that's just not there. But not that it not being in classical Kabbalah is whatever, but it's not there. Thank you, Marco, for the contribution to the channel. I really appreciate that. It's a lick, man. Thank you. Helps to keep the lights on, guys. It absolutely helps to keep the lights on, and I literally need lights on when I'm filming this. Otherwise, it's very dark. So thank you so much for supporting the channel. But yeah, I'm gonna do some more stuff on the Klipot. Like I said, I'm gonna do an episode just on the early history of evil in the Zohar because you really can't understand the later development of the Klipot as they develop in Itzhak Luria's thinking um, until later. And so I'll be doing an episode on the early history of the Klipot. I've already done one. It's a sort of very early history, and do that. Is there any evidence for the tree of life in Kabbalah predating Judaism and originating for everyone else? What's the right way of putting this? No, not the tree of life, not the 10 sphirot as we know them, but it's certainly the case that emanationist schemes involving a set of 10 did exist. The Neo-Pythagoreans had one. But in general, the specific form of the tree of life? No. But are there a dozen systems of emanations involving many, many, many different emanations? Absolutely, right? From Neoplatonism and Orphism. And so I think that, again, what we see is not that there is um, a situation where Kabbalists are taking something out of whole cloth. There's a field of Platonism and Neoplatonism, and the Kabbalah is one version of that Platonism, that Neoplatonism, as it gets expressed in Jewish mysticism. So the intellectual machinery predates medieval Judaism, but the actual tree of life, the Sphirot themselves, no, they're unique to Judaism, and we see them developing. Right, we see them developing inside of Judaism, inside of the Kabbalah. They're not born out of whole cloth. They it takes centuries for the Sphirot to develop, and so it'd be weird if they did take them from somewhere else, because then they would be taking whole cloth. But that's not the way that it happened. In fact, there's even a form of Kabbalah that existed called the Iyun circle, the contemplation circle, that slightly predates the Kabbalah, but it's still proto Kabbalah. And their version of the tree of life, their version of the Sphirot includes 13 Sphirot, not 10. So again, even that shows you that the history of this stuff is a lot more complicated than just, oh, they took it from somewhere else. That just didn't happen. Did not happen. Tom Birmingham, did you notice how the writers of the World of Darkness games held occult lore in the game? The 13 clans are the 13 families of the Tremere. Yeah, I've never played. Is this like Vampire the Masquerade stuff? So I've never played the Vampire the Masquerade stuff. I have the book, one of the books down there, but I've never played it, and I don't know much about it. Um, but yeah, it could be. I'm sure there has to be tons of occult lore in there. There's just no way anybody's making an RPG and not getting a little bit of occulty stuff in there. But yeah, I've never played Vampire the Masquerade or that world. The werewolf one, there's a werewolf one too. I think it Mage the Ascension. I've never played any of those. Uh, I've all just played old school Dungeons and Dragons, so I don't know about that. All right, folks. I'm going to stay on for about 4 more minutes. So about 4 more minutes. So if you have any last minute super chats or super sticker questions, please get them in. But I don't want anyone to put any so late that I can't get to them, because I don't want anyone to donate for the channel and not get their due. Don sees you Shadem. I got a lot of Shadem around here. I'm pretty sure the room is full of Shadem, unfortunately. Yeah, thank you for the super sticker. Yeah, thank you, Saget Master 4. What a great name. Yeah, there's no water but Torah. Yeah, that's a great great saying. So thank you, Saget Master. I wonder if you, I think I keep making jokes about, or I've made jokes about Kimmy Gibbler on the channel before. um I always like Kimmy Gibbler. I like the idea that Kimmy Gibbler is actually a secret adept. So that stuff is super. I don't know. I like that. But Bob Saget, may his memory be for a blessing. Thank you, Bob. But thank you guys for the thing. All right, folks. Oh yeah, Kimmy Gibbler. Don't be glib about the gib. I want to learn more about Eastern religions and philosophy, but struggle to find books that aren't self-help books in disguise. Just wonder if you have any good authors or resources. I'm not. Yeah, I saw that Stephanie Tanner got pushed down by the police. That's terrible. I've heard that also she's kind of become kind of a Marxist in recent years. So I'm all about like Stephanie Tanner Leninism, the Lenin Tanner tendency. But no, I don't know a ton about Eastern religions and philosophy. You may want to ask Dr. Angela Puka over at Angela's Symposium. She knows a good bit more about those Eastern traditions than I do. But if there's a particular idea or a particular religion you have in mind, I can probably ask around some of my colleagues who have some experience in Eastern religion philosophy and can look that up. Um, I do know that Hackett puts out a really great Chinese philosophy reader. They put out a really good Chinese philosophy reader, and there is a great collection called Classics of Indian Philosophy that I've read. That's actually a really great collection of Indic texts, including like sections from the Upanishads and the Vedas and things like that. Um, but those are the two texts that jump to mind: the Classics of Chinese Philosophy and that text on the Classics of Indian Philosophy are both really great collections of those. But again, I'm not an expert in that, so I read them with as much stultification as enlightenment, and so try to make heads or tails of them. And wish I had a lot more training in that. In fact, a um, a teacher at one of my universities teaches Chinese philosophy. That's a class I should take myself. I benefit from it. But yeah, the Gita and the Upanishads and all that stuff is great. Although I say great, the Gita is actually kind of terrifying. It's like one of the most terrifying books in world religion. People think it's kind of hippy dippy, but it's anything other than hippy dippy. Sort of like kill people because it's you're destined to do it. I don't know. It's kind of spooky. All right, folks. Well, let me just wrap up again by saying thank you guys for the super chats, for the super stickers, for supporting me on Patreon. I see Jenny and other folks who are supporters on Patreon. I'm just really deeply grateful for the support I get on the channel that enables me to do the work of taking all of those books behind me, right, and making them at some level accessible to other people who are interested in them and empowering you, right? Because at the end of the day, education has to be about empowerment. It has to be me taking some knowledge and then giving you enough of it that you can begin to do the work of educating yourself. Because you're never going to actually get educated by anyone else. You're going to have to do the work at some point, right? And insofar as you have to do the work and I can do the little tiny nudge of empowering you to do that and giving you access to resources to do that in a responsible way, that makes me feel like I have not wasted my life, folks. Not made bad life decisions, or at least not that bad life decision. And so let Esoterica be the nudge to get you empowered so that you will do the work of educating yourself. Because at the end of the day, folks, the only person you're really going to listen to is you. And so I really want to say thank you for enabling me to do that work with you and for you, to be a servant of the people, as an educator, as a person who wants to do that work. It makes me feel deeply grateful to have y'all support. 330 people in the chat on a Thursday at 1 o'clock or whatever, man, that blows my mind. So thank you for supporting the channel. Thank you for financially supporting me, for doing the work of also, clicking and sharing, liking and watching, all the things. So thank you all so much. Also, I guess I should say this. I'll put it on the channel next week. I'm going to take next week off. It's like I need a little breather. So I'm going to take a little short vacation. So there won't be any new content next week. We all need vacations, even us content creators. And I think I need a little break. So I'm going to take a little short vacation off next week. There's plenty of stuff in the back catalog, like almost 200 episodes in the back catalog. So you got plenty of stuff to work through there. So I'm going to take a little break. Then I'm going to be back swinging with all kinds of new content. So I look forward to making more content for you all. And again, just thank you. Thank you for making this all possible, both in terms of watching and in terms of doing the support that you do in all the different ways that people do. I'm very grateful for it. So that said, I'll highlight something from the back catalog next week, and then the week after I'll be back on the horse producing new Esoterica content. I'll go back to the Esoterica mines and mine you out some good stuff. So until then, folks, you guys take care of yourselves, and love some people and love the people around you. Love yourself, and read some cool books, read some weird stuff. Continue being the wonderful weirdos that you are, because who wants to be normal? It's boring. See you guys.